Eli Campbell here. One thing that makes Steamboat special is how many awe-inspiring people call our valley home. You could find yourself in line at the coffee shop next to an Olympian, or sitting on the gondola next to the founder of a world-renowned business. Our community produces and attracts the best of the best in their respective fields, but most are so humble about it you would never know. These extraordinary people are the common folk in the boat. Welcome to Common Folk in the Boat. Eli Campbell here with you. Dave Whitlinger as well. Are you a little nervous? Are you nervous today?
I'm never nervous around you.
Oh, well, this isn't because of me. Your boss, the man that pays your bills, is going to be coming in today.
Oh, right. That nervous. Yeah. No, I've got a really good relationship with the owners. Yeah. No, they're great people. So why not have them on the show? Put them in the hot seat.
Maybe I'm the one that's nervous because
Don't
Billo,
blow it. Yeah. Your sponsorship is hanging in their wings.
Billo has been such a great sponsor of ours, and we are going to have Jon Peddie, one of the owners of Billo, come and join us today, which we're not doing this just because Billo is a sponsor of ours. He's been a member of this community for 30 plus years. He has raised his family here. He actually recently purchased a bit of Steamboat history that we're going to be talking to him about. So he definitely fits the mold of common folk in the boat, and excited to have him along. Excited to have you to kind of provide some insight too.
And I'll even say this, you know, when you first, this was over a year ago now, when you started brainstorming the common folk in the boat at the time, and probably still, the premise is, you know, these are the people you could be sitting on a chair with, chatting it up with, and you didn't know that so-and-so was this. Well, I would say this, more than anything, if you're on a chair or a gondola with Jon Peddie, like, expect your ear to be just chatted. He is a chatty guy, and he loves talking with people, so why not have him as a podcast guest, right?
Yeah, and it's like I said, he knows a lot about this community. He's been fully ingrained in it for a long time, so I'm really looking forward to hearing from him. But as we start with every Common Folk in the Boat podcast, let's talk a little bit about what Billo is high on this week.
Yeah, well, I would say this, I'm still kind of reeling over the fact that we just did not our first or second, but our third winter photo shoot. We've gotten kind of in this rut in the last two that we've done where we kind of had, you know, mediocre weather, to say it that. So we've gotten good photography, but it's always been like, man, if it was only Bluebird or whatever. But man, we nailed it this time for sure. So I'll say this, we had a great day out in the mountains, undisclosed location, doing undisclosed things, but a ton of great photography, which I'm always thrilled about, because again, what's exciting is, yeah, we're a dispensary, we are a retail store, for lack of a better phrase, but at the end of the day, we're also a brand. And so when I could be put on my creative director hat, if you even call it that, and direct a photo shoot with models who are paid to be there, and it's a legitimate thing, and get such good like lifestyle photography from it, it's really cool. And then it feeds everything I do for the rest of the year in terms of imagery and content. So
nothing like waiting until April to do winter photo time shoots.
So, you know, but where we were, plenty of snow and yet bluebird sunny days. Yeah. So we got a good mix of that. And, you know, Eli, I'll say it's a tough job. It's hard working with models and really getting them in the right poses and making it all, you know, but I do it because I care.
Yeah, I mean, if you weren't paid to do it, you wouldn't hang out with models on Bluebird sunny days.
There may be other things other than hanging out with models, but if I have to do it, I guess I will.
Yeah. We all feel bad for you. But Jon Peddie, who's going to be joining us, is going to be glad to hear that you were enjoying your
taking one
work.
for the team. Yes, exactly.
We are going to be bringing Jon Peddie in here, owner of Billo Premium Cannabis, as well as just a great member of this community. Looking forward to talking to him. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Common Folk in the Boat. Eli Campbell here with you. We have now been joined by Jon Peddie of Billo Premium Cannabis, as well as just a great local here in Steamboat. How are you doing?
Great. It's springtime in the mountains.
I know, it's beautiful, isn't it? And you're actually, it's springtime here in the mountains. You're doing what a lot of us are doing. You're taking the exodus to Mexico here. But obviously, you love Steamboat. You've developed a great business here. And we are bringing you on the podcast, not just because Billo is the sponsor, but because of all of the efforts that you do to give back to the community. But as we start with everyone, I want to know kind of a little bit about the history, how you came to be in Steamboat and fall in love with this area.
Sure. And you talk about springtime and everybody exiting spring in Steamboat and pretty much every ski area in the spring. And that's been kind of the history of the term mud season was back when really everybody exited because it was mud. And I started my ski town life when I was 20 in Sun Valley, Idaho. And I met my wife there. We lived there for probably 4 years. And then I moved back to Southern California. But back in the day, everybody exited every ski town come April 1st, April 15th. I mean, when I say everybody, every store closed down, everything shut down.
Turn out the lights.
And so it's not quite as bad, but it used to be the huge sucking sound that is skiers and everybody who lives in the ski town heading to Mexico.
I've been here long enough. I remember, when I was first living here during the spring break week, you could literally stand on Main Street in the middle of the day and not get run over by a car, not see anybody, not worry about it. So it's definitely, whether it's Mexico or Fruta or wherever, people leave this time of year.
Now, there will be a little tiny time in the next couple of weeks when you will be able to see someone driving the other direction, and you will be able to stop on Main Street and have a discussion from car to car. But it's only about a 10-minute period now, not 2 weeks like it used to be.
Yeah, right.
But back to the question at hand. So I lived in Sun Valley. I moved back to Southern California, got married there, and my wife and I knew we wanted to live in a ski town. We wanted to raise our kids in a ski town. So we kind of bid our time or kind of did everything we could to kind of survive in Southern California. I was working in real estate development there for kind of a big development company. And I'd gotten a phone call from two friends who were here in Steamboat since the 70s. And this is now probably mid to late 80s. And they said, hey, Steamboat is so dead right now. We're just, bouncing back from huge slowdown of everything. If you want to do some development work, Steamboat's the place. And so myself and two other guys from California flew out here. And I hadn't been to Steamboat in a long time. My mom used to own a condo here back in the 60s, 70s. And when I was a kid, we'd come here every now and then and ski. I had an uncle who lived here. I had a cousin who lived here. So it kind of made sense to come to Steamboat. And did my first real estate development project while living in California and kind of flying back and forth. And then the two guys I was doing deals with, they kind of wanted to stay in California, didn't want to deal with Colorado, so I kept coming back and forth. And I think I did probably 3 or 4 years of commuting from Southern California to Steamboat before I came home one day and got the note on the window from my wife saying, hey, next time you go, we're all going. And so, so kind of was not forced into it, but we decided, I think one of our kids was maybe 5 and one was 3, and it was a good time to move to Steamboat.
Yeah. In raising kids here, it's such a great place to have a family and raise kids here, especially if you love the outdoor atmosphere and all of the recreation, which I know that you do. It's also a place that feels strong with community, and you've been a part of that as both real estate and then moving into Billo. One of the things that I love about Billo is that it's not just about being a dispensary, but it's about giving back to the community. When you started Billo, what was it that you really were trying to start more than just the dispensary side of things?
What was that? Billo was really, to be wholly honest, so my partner in Billo, Dave Kohlberg, who's our grower, Paul Franklin, who's my majority partner with me. Paul and I are real estate guys, and we were looking actually in Hayden. Hayden had approved the growing of marijuana, and we thought, and we had developed the industrial park in Hayden, and we thought, well, maybe we'll actually, and this is coming out of the 2007 recession or so. We didn't sell a lot in Hayden for, pick a number, 10 years. It was tough. But Hayden approved growing, and so we started looking at it, and we thought, boy, we're finally going to survive this. We're going to, we'll find someone to grow cannabis in Hayden and we'll sell some lots. And that just never happened. And so the next thing we did was, when you're in the real estate spec business, a lot of times to get something going, you need to build a house and a subdivision and set that pace, set that standard so that people kind of see what you can do. And we thought the same thing with cannabis. So we hired an architect who was working in the cannabis world, and we said, hey, design a grow for us. And he did. And he said, one of the things that he was doing was working for the grower who was Natural Choice then, which was one of the 3 licenses in Steamboat. And make a long story short, we ended up buying the license from Natural Choice, relocating Natural Choice from the industrial park to the Ace Hardware Plaza, and then eventually to our current location on US 40 south of town. So the question, what did we really vision? It's really, in a small town, it's really something that's nice to have a small business, because you meet the people, you talk to people, you get a better feel for what's going on outside of your bubble.
Yeah.
So I work in the real estate world. So I deal with realtors, I deal with mortgage brokers, I deal with title companies. And they're all great people, and they're all in their bubbles, and everybody has the people they interact with. So with Billo, it was kind of an opportunity to interact with a completely different part of the Steamboat community. And as you said, it was a good opportunity to give back to the extent we can to the community, because that's probably the one thing that sets Steamboat apart from, I don't want to say any other ski town, because everyone is unique, but Steamboat is truly a community. And I do think it's unique. I can't think of a better place to live. My favorite memory of my kids, when they were growing up, was we would go to Mexico for spring break, and we'd have a blast. And we'd be coming down rabbit ears, and like everybody else coming down rabbit ears in the spring, you kind of look at Catamount, and you look at the valley, and you look at everything, and you're like, and my kids would kind of like just pop up from the back of the car and go, we are so happy to be back in Steamboat.
Yeah.
And it's true.
I've had that on vacations where, and I don't think that happens a lot either. You go on a vacation, usually the natural is, I gotta go back now. I gotta go back to the real world. Like, I'm always shocking myself in that I get to come back. Like, I'm back in Steamboat. I had a great trip. I love to see other places, but man, it's not a hardship to have to drive off rabbit ears and say, I'm home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, impressive, because my kids are now 8 and 11, and I don't know that they've gotten to that place. I think they appreciate Steamboat. We go to Denver a lot for sports, and they appreciate that they come back to Steamboat. But I don't know that they've really gotten to that full, like, this is a special place to live. They don't understand how special they have it. To hear your kids were popping up in the back seat and just saying, wow, we're back. Like, my kids are like, it's another Tuesday, whatever. Like, it's a good place though, and they'll get there eventually. As we were talking though with Billo, it was partially a business development. It was all these things for you back when you were starting Billo. It was kind of a new industry as well. You had been in real estate, but what were, beyond just like kind of the challenges of the industry itself, what were the challenges for you kind of jumping into this whole new field?
Partially the industry. I mean, learning the industry, learning how things are done, learning how the regulations are from the MED, the Marijuana Enforcement Division, how we have to interact with them, which is not that different than interacting with regulatory agencies for real estate, but dramatically more complex. And truthfully, we got really lucky in that, we initially hired a bunch of people who we thought were really good in the cannabis world. And people used to tell us, we went down to Denver, we had some good connections in the cannabis business there, and nobody just kind of went to marijuana university and learned how to grow cannabis. So everybody who's a grower is somebody who used to grow either for their personal consumption, for the gray market, whatever they did. And the guys who we spoke with who were, really early on in the cannabis world told us, you'll never take kind of somebody who's just was a home grower or a personal grower and convert them to a production grower. Mm-hmm. They said it's just too big a jump. But we found in our grower, Dave, somebody who stepped up to the challenge and made it work. We got lucky in that Charlie, my son, just happened to be moving back to Steamboat at that time and was trying to get out of, he was working in the ski sports, snowboard sports industry, and he was looking for a change. And so we kind of were able to kind of put a team together quickly of people who knew dramatically more about cannabis than Paul and I. And the challenge for Paul and I was to kind of keep everybody in line and try to keep people focused, because getting into cannabis and the growing of cannabis is a super risky, super expensive endeavor. The technology changes monthly. What people are looking for in terms of product changes frequently. So you really need to be at the forefront of the industry and really know where it's going, because you need to be planning on it 9 months in advance. And that's probably the biggest challenge in the industry, is kind of focusing on where you want to be in 9 months in terms of product, in terms of packaging, in terms of marketing, in terms of everything, because you need that kind of lead time, and that's a big challenge. It's tough.
And what's been impressive with Billo is that you guys have been at the forefront, whether it's with what you're growing or the products. You're now doing infused chocolates and gummies and different things, and bringing in a lot of great partners as well. Dave and I have been talking a lot about some of the different partners and different experiences that people are trying to get out of their cannabis consumption. For you, as someone that has kind of been seeing this along the way, what has been the biggest surprise for you about how this industry has grown in Colorado, and how some people haven't been able to, some of those businesses, I think, that didn't take the business approach, more just the kind of fun approach, haven't been able to survive along the way?
Yeah, I would say the vast majority of cannabis businesses in the state of Colorado, and at some level within the United States, have been, I want to say decimated, but it's been the last 24 months have been, very, very challenging. And more people have gotten out of the industry than have gotten into it. I don't know of anybody who said, I think I'm going to open up a cannabis business in the last 2 years. The wholesale price of flower has dropped in half. At the same time, the cost of, the 40 people that we have employed at Billo, the luck of the draw. I mean, it's expensive to live in Steamboat.
Yeah.
And so we need to pay people appropriately. And, when you're paying people more, and utilities are more, and insurance is more, and everything is more, and the cost of the wholesale price of the product you're selling is dropping in half, it's a challenge.
It's not normal balance sheet, is it?
No, but
and I think that's a misconception for a lot of people. They think, it's 100%. the marijuana business. They must be printing cash and things like that, not understanding the other side of it.
Probably a year ago, that was probably a very common comment.
Yeah.
I think everyone's opened the paper, everyone's looked at it for the last 12 months and seen and heard about the industry. Steamboat was very smart in that Steamboat limited the number of licenses. And so from a retail perspective, the 3 retailers in town are all able to survive. In a lot of communities, the retailers are just really struggling. And so, Steamboat has been really, very, very good in that respect for us. At the same time, we're a little unique in that we're vertically integrated. And so, we grow our own cannabis, we process our own cannabis, we have our own pre-roll joints, we have our concentrates, we have our vapor pens, we have our edibles, we have our chocolates. So we're able to produce all that and both wholesale that throughout the state and also, survive, and make a little bit of money in Steamboat. And the other thing that's really good, and Dave can probably speak more about it than I am because it's more in his world, but we submit to many cannabis competitions every year, and we do really well.
Yeah, 100%. One of the learning experiences when I came to work for you, John, was just because I knew Billo as a customer, but I didn't know the industry as much as I do now, of course, but I also didn't know the products. I was always, and it's probably still am, I'm very low tolerance, just sort of like it all is good to me. But when you get into the finer points of what makes cannabis special, similar to, and I use this analogy a lot, whether it's fair or not, but like wines, what makes this a 99 point wine versus something else? There is that same nuance to cannabis. And one of the things that I was pleasantly and still to this day so thankful for is that Billo, beyond being just this great community presence from a statewide standpoint, produces, I don't know if it's the mountain grown atmosphere, the oxygen, the water, whatever Dave at the grow is doing. I continually get feedback from people across the state just singing the praises of the flower and the products that Billo is able to cultivate and curate right here in Steamboat, which I take pride in, not just for Billo, but just the community. Like Steamboat is now being known by way of these awards that Billo is winning statewide.
Well, and it speaks to the name, Billo Premium Cannabis. I know that you wrote a piece recently about what the difference is, why premium matters, and is that something that was always part of the Billo plan, to make something that was the highest quality possible? And, even if it's maybe going to cost a little bit more, there is the difference. There is going to be something that makes you want to pay the little bit extra for that premium quality.
Sure. I think in any product, across the consumer spectrum, there's always somebody who says, I want to be the best. And, it differentiates you in a number of areas. But I think for us, we really wanted to be the best. And it takes a lot to do that. But it shows. And I think you see people recognize it. I ski a lot and snowboard a lot. And I constantly have discount coupons and stuff in my pocket, and I give them to lifties, I give them to Patrol, I give them to anybody who I really feel is part of this community who could probably use a 2-for-1 coupon and use for something, because these are the heart and soul of Steamboat. And they look at a bill, I hand someone a Billo coupon, and they're like, Billo, we love Billo, and I don't see them saying that about other products from across the state. Our competitors in Steamboat, I think, do a really, really good job as well. But Steamboat, has tended to acknowledge that Billo is a really, really good product for flour, for concentrates, for our vapes and edibles and stuff.
Just to piggyback on that, it was funny. So Paul, your partner and my boss as well, he and I, of course, are big in the hockey world here in Steamboat. And as of the last, 12 months, year, maybe more, since Billo's been sponsoring a team, it now has become that sort of same thing where, man, if you get drafted to the Billo team, like it's turning into like, wow, that's an honor, because those guys are the same way in the locker room, and it's not just blowing smoke and being nice to your sponsors, if you will, but they legitimately mean it, that, man, your products are kicking butt, and they do what they say, and they're great for me and my health. So it's fun, in addition to the skiing and all the other sports we do, the hockey is the same thing. There's guys that are like, man, I want to be on the Billo team.
and we talk a lot about how the influence of Billo in the community, but can you talk a little bit about how the community has supported Billo along the way, and has it changed from when you were first getting into the industry and the business to now? It's certainly kind of a different atmosphere when it was such a young industry to now, but how has the community supported you?
They do every day.
Yeah.
Billo is probably a little over 50% of the market in Steamboat. So, of the community that shops for cannabis, we get 50% of that market. And the reality is we do everything we can to support, it's almost the opposite. We kind of try to do everything we can to support the community. And, to that end, Dave has been hugely successful at hooking us up with, various nonprofits, the yoga in the park, we do
the
really
reps, the Reaching Everyone Preventing Suicide. We've done a bunch with them.
Yeah, and so
you guys did a great party at the Old Town Pub in the off season just to celebrate the locals and kind of the people that were going to be working with the tourists. You guys do a lot.
And then they, which is really kind of I think it's unique in the state, but we do a cultivated cuisine, a cannabis themed dinner that we do 2 a summer. 3?
Yeah, two every summer we've been
and it's sells out quickly.
It's that event by itself has also been sort of a feather in the cap of Billo, because as John just said, it does not have, I mean, there's a handful of places in the state that are doing cannabis events, but I think the theme is a little bit different, where it's it's sort of, let's get together and smoke pot. These are elegant, fine dining, farm to table events that are truly, every touch point is as premium, not to keep hitting that word, but as it can be.
It kind of goes back to the wine analogy. It's like a pairing type of event.
Yeah. And when we started working with the farm where we host those dinners, that was exactly it. They welcomed us with open arms. I wasn't sure if they would, but they did, because they said, Dave, we do wine pairing dinners all summer long. This is not new for us. This type of experience is not new for us, but we haven't worked with a dispensary. So thank you for coming to us. Absolutely, we want your business. And we've just formed this amazing partnership with them in the sense that we all now look forward to that event. And I think our guests I've yet to hear of any guest that doesn't leave having one of the most memorable experiences of their life, honestly.
Everyone really does talk about it, who goes, and they're like, when do I sign up for the next one?
Yeah.
But really, it kind of gets back to, you talk about, and it's kind of an overused word in Steamboat, but it's not overused because it's so true. You talk about community.
Yeah.
And, so what has the community done for us? The community supports us, and that's great. But this is a town that so supports everything. There's not an event, a fundraiser, anything that happens that virtually every business in Steamboat that can do it supports. And it's not, it's ones that people don't even think about. Everybody thinks about, and they are, one of the biggest community supporters in town is Snowball. And Snowball does so much across the board. But the hospital does their health fair. And that's a community. I don't know of any other community that a hospital goes out there and says, hey, for the next 3 days, for relatively nothing, you can come in, you can talk to a health professional, you can get your blood drawn, you can get x-ray, you can do all this stuff, and it's really, really reasonable. And it's part of the community, because they want to keep the community healthy. They really are a part of the community, and they're giving back.
Yeah.
And that goes to almost every retailer, goes to almost everybody's ski corps. They were huge during the pandemic, just like Snowball. They were feeding lots and lots of people who needed help,
helping out friends and neighbors.
And that's coming out of I guess we're so far past the pandemic that probably don't need to bring it up anymore. But it was a time when this community across the board really stepped up, and we have a lot of people who are. I don't know that it's hard to say that there's no middle class in Steamboat, but there's a lot of people in Steamboat who are, retired here, work here, whatever, who are fairly well off. But there are a lot of people here who are truly, truly paycheck to paycheck. And when they need help, this community steps up. And I don't know that I've ever lived in any community that you can really say that with honesty is how great this community is.
And it must be really rewarding to own a company that is able to give back, to be able to be a part of that community in such a way that not only is visible at free concerts and all the marketing efforts, which I have to commend Dave on, and I'm not saying this just because he's been a friend of mine for a long time, but I know he's put a lot of effort to put Billo at the forefront, but also to be there as a source of health for a lot of people, relieving pain, helping with sleeping, or just giving back to the people in ways that Billo has done in the past for someone like you who's lived here since, what, 20, 30 years.
I'll inject real quick. Just this is an interesting interview, John, because obviously we brought you in because of your business acumen and all the experience in the community that we've talked about. But it's fun for me to be able to sit here with you because I don't know if I've ever actually shared with you, but I absolutely, and I'm not saying this because the microphone's on, I absolutely love working for Billo. And the reason is from day one, when I was brought on with you guys, there was a meeting that we all had and we kind of laid out the objectives. And at the top of that list was, Dave, go out and figure out some of these partnerships with nonprofits, other community events. What other stuff can we use our success, if you will, to put towards the community and giving back and different events and stuff. And I kind of had that moment of like, pinch me, like, wait, this is my job. I get to do this. Like, these guys are helping me facilitate these relationships. Like, that's the part I honestly love about what you've created, John, and just getting to be a part of that as well.
And Billo's it's a fun company. It's a fun industry. You talked about, my history. One of the things I did real estate development here, a fair amount of building, but we bought and built back in like 1999, the old, if you remember the Dino's Texaco corner. This is before Hilltop Parkway was even there. Yeah. It was just the corner of US 40. And so we built that and we owned and managed and ran it. And we did, we had the dinosaur out front and we put the saddle on the dinosaur. Yeah. And the dinosaur ended up on the roof of the high school at one time.
It got lifted. I remember that.
All kinds of fun things, but there was a limit to what we could do as a small company to support the quote unquote community. And but we did what we could. But it was certainly a smaller deal. And I just remember you talked about the hardships of Steamboat. When my world would get really, really crazy in real estate, I would go to the gas station and I would work behind the counter because nobody who came in knew me. I could sit there and, can I get a pack of smokes with that? No problem, sir. And I could just be an invisible little employee at a gas station. And to me, that was like when I needed to hide, that was perfect. And you'd hear the comments from people about, because these are all, not all, but a lot of tourists who come in. And to listen to their stories about Steamboat and what a great time they have in Steamboat. And it's kind of no different when you go skiing and you get on a chairlift. And, just by personality, I tend to talk a lot. And so I talk to people on the chair, talk to them in the gondola. And, hey, what brought you to Steamboat? How do you like it? How's your trip going? No one ever has anything bad to say about Steamboat.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've recently purchased some of Steamboat history, from what I understand, the Marshall House. You were part of moving the building and have some plans with that as well. What are you going to be doing with the Marshall House?
So we purchased there were 5 lots. The Marshall House was on 2 of the lots. And for those who don't know, the Marshall House I think it's the oldest stick frame house in Steamboat. Yeah. And I live right in Old Town. And so, I look at the Crawford House, which is an old stone house, every day. Yeah. And, so when we heard about the Marshall House and we kind of started getting into the history of the Marshall House, we didn't want to be those developers. And this is, we kind of met with the historical preservation group in town, and they helped us to work through and look at options to relocate the house. And in the end, the group that owns Smell That Bread owned an adjacent lot, and they really were interested in preserving the house. And one of the things that historical preservation wanted, they didn't want you to take, we had a lot of people in North Route say, hey, boy, if you can get it up there for us, we'll take it up there and we'll have it on our ranch. Or we had some people in South Route. But the historical people were like, we really need this in town, and we don't really, we want it very close to its current location. So it worked out really well for everyone to relocate the house to adjacent to Smell That Bread. And Sam Gordon, who is Smell That Bread, he's anxious to go through the process. I think he wants to do a cigar bar, kind of a really cool spot adjacent to Smell That Bread. And, when we first thought about it and heard about it, we kind of had questions. I wonder how that's going to work. But when you see the house located on its current, in its current location, it'll really be cool. And it's great to be associated with preserving one of the truly, truly oldest homes in Steamboat.
And I don't know if people really realize, because I've gone by Smell That Bread and you see it, and it looks like a dilapidated old house that needs to be torn down, but people maybe don't realize that's one of the oldest, like you said, the oldest stick-built houses here. It's part of history, and to be able to take that location and turn it into something that will create more memories through the future.
It's I live very close to there, and my house is 130 plus years old, and I build 2025 product, and so when I go into the houses that we build that have no issues at all, and then I go to my house that's 130 years old, and I wonder why I got to deal with the heating or the roof or the wall or this. It's a challenge, but it's a challenge that's worth it.
Yeah.
And I think that the Marshall House, what it's done, will really be an exceptional addition to Steamboat. And we were just glad that we were able to find something in town, close to our location, that worked for the end user and worked for us.
Yeah.
But it is pretty funny because, so many people. When we moved into our house 30 plus years ago, we had a family. My house was, Billy Kidd lived there at one point. He told us some history, but within the first year or so of moving into our house, we had a knock on the door, and this couple who were visiting from Grand Junction, and they lived in our house in the 40s and 50s.
Oh, wow.
And they came in and they pointed to these 200-foot trees that are in our backyard right now, and they said, we planted those when our boys were born, and they had all the history of our house was a Wells Fargo stage stop at one point. It was originally it's the barn. Our house was the barn for the house that still remains next door to us.
Oh, wow.
And we have a picture over our fireplace of our house in the late 1800s. And, the Creekside building is there, Lyons Drugs is there. There's a couple other things that are there, but within reason, there's been a significant amount of change in Steamboat. But it was really, really cool to talk to these people about the history of Steamboat. And the same thing with the Marshall House. We had somebody come by, and he wanted to take some, when we were getting ready to figure out how we can move it and what we have to do. And he came by and introduced himself. He was born in that house. Mm-hmm. His father died in that house. He was one of the Marshalls, and he's still in Steamboat today. Yeah. And he asked if he could take this or that, and it was really, really cool, because to think that kind of history is getting preserved, and everybody was really happy.
Yeah, we've had some opportunities on this podcast to talk to like Ray Hyde and hear his stories of being born in the 1930s in downtown Steamboat. Or Jay Fetcher showed us a overhead picture before there was a ski area where Walmart is now was a bowling alley, and that was the only building, and it was there because it was outside city limits, so you could do whatever you want there. And preserving that history is an important part of keeping the culture and the community of what we've been talking about is special about this place, moving it forward as well. And I'm excited that you are doing that. I appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. Billo's been such a great supporter of our podcast since the beginning, and to have you in here and talk to you a little bit about the history of it and what you see as the future has been really fun. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. Thanks, Dave. We appreciate it. And the podcast, we do listen to it. And I was on my way over here today, and I was talking to a guy, and I told him where I was going. And he's like, I love that podcast. and he lives in Durango now. And And he was like, I really miss not hearing it all the time. He said, I'm going to find out when this is on and come listen to it. But so, you know, Common Folk in the Boat has a huge following. And we appreciate all your efforts to do that as well, because it brings the community together.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And it's part of what we do. Why we do what we do is just to highlight the community. So.
Perfect.